Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
This house is pissed. It has no morals, because it's a fucking house! Eddie, if Edward is truth.
And today we are going over House on Haunted Hill, 1999, the remake. I have to stress for that group of people who are, upset that it's not the original, I guess. The
diehard Vincent Price fans.
But,
Price heads.
Released October 29th, 1999.
Yeah.
This was kind of, I want to say, the first of the remake. Everyone, talks about, Texas Chainsaw Massacre being the first remake. But, remakes have gone back ages. You could argue that The Thing, John Carpenter, is a remake, even though I feel like that's not so much a remake as it's just his adaptation of the story. But The Blob, 1988, Night of the Living Dead, 1990. So it's just this was kind of started the trend of.
Yeah, I'd even argue Dracula and Frankenstein movies made by made in the UK after
the Hammer
made them in the 30s and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Those are I don't really consider those so much remakes as more just adaptations of just a different retelling from a different region or what have you. But just in terms of Hollywood. Just taking something and recycling it and repackaging it and whatnot. But I have to say, just sort of get into it here, is that I really like this remake. I think that, we mentioned this because we already did 13 Ghosts, which was another Dark Castle feature. We did that episode a few months back.
Yeah.
But I think there's certain times where a remake is warranted, and I think for something like a Vincent Price movie that is very antiquated by today's standards, or even today, as in 20 plus years ago when this movie came out, is that it just feels appropriate to kind of update this movie for a more modern audience, where something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre I feel is still pretty contemporary in terms of just 1974 to 2003, and especially when you start getting to the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So just as far as remakes go, yay, I like this one, but I feel like you're gonna sing a different tune. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Okay, let me just say, I didn't see it in its initial run. I think I saw it for the first time in its entirety because of you. And back on the old pod, when we were doing commentaries and stuff like that. And this is one I doubt I'll ever grow with. It was the hardest sitting I've ever had with this movie. I think I've maybe seen it 3 or 4 times at this point. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, it can't hold my attention to save its life. I feel like most of what I bring to the pod this particular episode will be rebuttal and will be me questioning, just asking questions, because I'm still unclear about a lot of it. I just don't find it interesting at all. Again, we've talked about this with other pods before, about maybe sometimes there's a director and what interests them doesn't interest me. What they feel compelled to point the camera at, I don't feel compelled to behold. But in this case, it feels more like, I kept coming back to this while I was watching it, this particular screening in particular. I was just wondering, I think this director's motivated by a situation and by an atmosphere, that seems to be what is kind of what the movie's leaning on. And I don't find the situation compelling, and I don't find the atmosphere well crafted or executed at all. So I'm really thumbs down with this movie, unfortunately. But I can't wait to hear what you continue to elaborate on.
I don't agree that it's first of all, William Malone is the director. Right. I don't think that it's solely based on the situation and the atmosphere. And I mean, I don't like the atmosphere. I don't think is perfect or anywhere close to it, but I still think that it's serviceable enough. But like for me, like where the movie really lies is in the characters, and not every character, because there's a lot that are thrown away. But I think that really like the main focus of just being like the married couple of the Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen characters, because they really do like embody the spirit of the movie, and just like that vitriol that oozes off of them like every time they interact, and just like how it kind of affects like all these just like unwitting strangers who are just like here for the money. Like that's the thing, like the movie is really like all the characters are motivated by greed, and I think that it's kind of pushed to the wayside a bit, because it does become like more of like this is the situation we're in, because clearly, I mean, well, I'll let you get to your premise before we get into the nuts and bolts of things, but it does feel like sort of like the fun of the movie, which I don't think is ever lost, but it's definitely like, you know, we talked about with 13 Ghosts and especially the Dark Castle movies, is that it feels like a carnival. It feels like a roller coaster ride, which is very fitting here since that's how the movie starts. But I just, you know, like I have so much fun with this movie. It's like even in the marketing of just like that trailer, where just like, are you dying to get rich? And it's like 5 strangers will spend the night in the house to win $1 million, and you know, it's just like that kind of like it really harkens back to the William Castle era of just like that gimmick of going to see a horror picture, and like what the fun of the movie really is, because that's the bottom line here, is that like I walk away from this movie just like I had a really good time. I had fun with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So I didn't write one because I couldn't be bothered. But here, this one says it is good as any. I got this off of IMDb. Thank you, Robert Rosado. I mean, because this kind of lines up with what you just presented. Yeah. I'm not going to feign enthusiasm, though. How far would you go for $1 million? Would you spend the night in a haunted house? When twisted billionaire Stephen Price and his devilish wife, Evelyn, offer 6 strangers $1 million each. There is only one rule to the game. They'll have to survive one night in a formal mental institution haunted by the ghosts of the inmates killed there and an insane doctor who did unspeakable things. At first, everyone is having fun, thinking that the whole thing is a joke, but once the entire house automatically seals itself shut, they realize this is no joke. In the house on Haunted Hill. Yeah.
I hate you. That really reminded me of the South Park, for anyone who's into South Park. Of just like sort of like when they were making fun of Rob Schneider movies, and just like the trailers for all of his different movies, and it was that voice of just like, Rob Schneider is a carrot in this 24-karat comedy.
You know what? That actually, you put Rob Schneider in Chris Kattan's role, this movie is completely dismissible by me then. Because I do have to say, I did, the one character I felt I could glom onto was Chris Kattan's, just because, and I'm not going to say the character names because number one, I don't know them, and number two, I know every one of the actors' names, so, yeah. But Chris Kattan's character, I thought, just in the sense that he was, I don't know, just the fact that he seemed to be the only one who really kind of knew where he was and didn't want to be there, that made it more enticing. I was just kind of like, oh, cool, now he's trapped. Now he's actually got some inner conflict that he is like now just flushing out and letting everybody know. This is exactly how I feel about this. And there's a lot to unpack with this movie in terms of my questions, because I don't know if they knew. Do you find that you're watching a movie that the people making it know what they're doing at all? Because I don't.
So you think that the people who made this movie didn't know what they were making?
Yeah. Because I can't follow it for shit, and I don't think it's just.
How is there nothing to? It's simple.
Okay. Well, okay, we'll get there. First off, okay, this asylum flashback that they start with, and everything. So the doctor, this is good. We'll unpack it. So the doctor, evil man, is Dr. like Vanica, cutting open bodies.
Played by Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, so
I'm glad that you showed up with your trivia.
Dr. Combs is like
Dr. Vanica, played by Jeffrey Combs. Let's keep up here. Come on.
I told you I'm going to use their real names. So Dr. Combs is there, and he's cutting people open and stuff. So okay, he is experimenting on people in a way that he should not be, is what I derived. And it looks like the staff were all kind of like complicit. And then there was an uprising suddenly, and the inmates took over the asylum, and they tore all the nurses' shirts open, and they killed Dr. Combs and all of his comettes. So, okay, am I right so far? Did I get anything wrong?
I think you were following it pretty closely.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Okay, then we go to a roller coaster sequence.
Well, okay, you're glossing over the bit, because that opening segued into sort of like a terrifying but true television special that Evelyn is watching in the comfort of her bubble bath while she's preparing or just getting ideas for her birthday party. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then it segues to the
thing and.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it segues. So we know. Okay, so the seed is planted. She's like, "Wow, fucked up shit happened somewhere." Peter Graves, I'm in. So biography. That's how I remember Peter Graves. But anyway, on A&E. But okay, so she decides she wants to have a party, and she wants to have it at this house. And apparently, this is something they do on the regular. It's like
every year they have a thing for however long they've been married. You know.
Okay, great. Yeah. So now then we go to the roller coaster, and Jeffrey Rush invites James Marsters and Lisa Loeb to like show them the thing, and somehow there's a simulation that the ride begins before you even know that it begins with the elevator, and it's a fake out because you think you're plummeting to your death, but you're not. It's just part of the ride. And then you get on the roller coaster and things get really messed up. And I feel like I blinked and I saw the track break Final Destination style. And the car just flew off. And I didn't see any aftermath to that. So did I miss something? What happened?
Okay, well, I think that you're being way too nitpicky here, because yes, that entire sequence is stupid beyond belief, because that begs the question of like, how expensive is this? Like, what is the overhead? Because it's like every cycle of just like every turn that they take to go on there, you'd have to imagine. So does this car, which flies off the track, fly into a big heap of like other wrecked roller coaster? Yeah. Or does it sort of like land on another track somehow? Like it just like perfectly lines up and then comes right back around again. So this entire ride seems like it's just like a money pit. Like, you know, how much is upkeep to just keep doing this?
So that was supposed to happen? It was supposed to go off the track.
It was supposed to, because the first car in front of them is a dummy car, because everyone in it
they were putting the
fake. That's why the guy comes out of the end who is the actor. He was on Buffy, the
Whistler.
Whistler, yeah, on the
Yeah.
season 2 finale, and James Marsters. A lot of Buffy in this scene, which I didn't even notice that was him when I first saw it in the theater.
Oh,
Because he was like kind of like hidden behind the camera. He was the cameraman. And I think like the focus is not so much on him as it is as much as on like the situation and like Lisa Loeb. Like, what is Lisa Loeb doing in this movie? But it's like that whole scene is just sort of ridiculous, and I see it as just like, how you explained, it's just like it's the building up of the fun. It's showing that this is going to be a carnival, this is going to be a fun ride, and it delivers on that. It just maybe not for you because you're overthinking the logistics of it all.
No, I mean, I just couldn't make any sense out of it. If it's not even about overthinking. Like, I understand at a certain point with some movies you have to just kind of let them wash over you. Yeah. But the thing is, there has to be something compelling me to stay connected with it. If I just lean back and just go, just let the let the thing run until the credits go, and then all be over. Like, I need something to hook me, and I didn't have hooks. My only hooks were really questions. And that's why I'm asking them, because I want to understand. I want to see what would make someone enjoy this experience, because quite clearly I didn't. But okay, so it's supposed to go off the tracks.
Well,
but
just
we don't
on this
quite know
watch
exactly.
through, because I mean, you've said in the past that you've enjoyed this, and I think that based on conversations last week or the way that you ended out the last podcast, it was almost like you were anticipating having a bad time. So maybe you just kind of went into this with that mindset.
But I try to release that. The thing is, like, I try to open
I
up
don't
my
know.
mind.
I think
that's why
you're.
But that's why the questions.
I think you're way too petty to do that.
Oh dear God. Okay, no, but the fact that I am here asking questions to try and decipher what went on, as opposed to just going, no, it sucked. I don't want to just completely dismiss it. I want to unpack this, but I can't have a conversation about like what I thought were strengths in a movie that I felt there were virtually none for the most part. Like, the percentages are way wackadoo for me. Okay. So
well, I'm just pointing out the fact this is the first podcast in a while where we've been on opposite sides. So, if I'm gonna make this as contentious as possible, this is going to be Zach versus Edward. Place your bets.
Oh dear God. All right, if we want to have that pod, then I'm asking questions, but okay, but okay. So then we find ourselves, this is the part where I should be hooked in, because we find ourselves like seeing all of the people sitting in their little cars being, like taken to the big tall building and everything, to the party. Oh, and okay, that was another thing. Okay. So she typed out a list of the people she wanted invited, passed it off, instead of inviting them, she passed it off to her husband, Famke, I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Rush changed it and invited other people
to
fuck with her head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she had like a long list. Names. Like, she had all of her like socialite friends. It was like a scroll. It was like an Old Testament. Like, it was like a huge thing.
And that's another thing. Like, I mean, again, it's probably just going to sound like nitpicking to you, but at the same time, like, I'm just like, I was left with nothing but questions. I'm like, wait. And then later in the movie, we find out that he's done this to her before. Like, fucked with her guest list and invited people he wanted there instead. So why bother passing it off to him? Why don't you just do it yourself and invite the people you want to be at your party?
Well, I mean, as we find out that she was planning this whole thing where she could fake her death and then have someone else kill him, and frame him. None of it. Okay, here's the thing. Like, what you're describing, I agree. Like, a lot of it doesn't make sense, but the things that you're nitpicking at aren't really the things that I take umbrage with. There are certain things like that are not explained, because in that scene when he after he shreds her guest list and then he types out his own and types 5 names into the thing, that was another thing. In your premise, the guy said 6 strangers, and I think that was even in the promotional material, because
Oh,
it's four. There are, I mean, five if you include Pritchett, Chris Kattan's character. But that always bothered me. And the fact that when the limos are pulling up, there are also five cars, and there's only four of them that get out. I mean, maybe the last car is like Famke or Evelyn is in that, but they all got out at the same time, so it's just kind of weird that nobody was like waiting for her to come up the drive with them, and
like, oh dear God, don't let them see me. Just
Yeah.
just waiting it out in the car.
Yeah,
like maybe they'll all go away.
Yeah, but anyway, like in terms of like the actual inviting of the guests, because he goes on his computer and he's
Right.
like, yeah, I'm gonna invite five people, and I don't know if even like it made it like it implied that the five people that he invited he knew or like intended to invite, because later on when he was handing out or getting the names to fill out the checks, he said like, I have to admit, like, I don't know any of you people, you're not the guests that I invited. But because you see after he types it up, he goes off to a meeting or whatever, and then a shadow comes in front of the computer, and we don't see like any hands or anything typing, so it's not very clear as like whether this was the spirits or whatever, like getting into the machine, as it was kind of implied by Pritchett later on, or it was Evelyn who came there and then just wrote out this guest list herself. But it doesn't make sense, just given the fact that like later on we find out that these people were intentionally invited because they were the descendants of the 5 surviving staff members who, the house needs to claim their souls, is very like Final Destination. It's like Final Destination 0 with Ali Larder. But the
Clear River's origin story.
Exactly. But then there's more complications that are thrown into the mix, because then we find out that Ali Larder's character isn't actually the person who was invited, and this was all in a series of deleted scenes that appear on the Blu-ray and the DVD and all that, but weren't in the movie. They're just kind of like quickly explained away. Is that she comes in there and they're all giving their names and their occupations, and she says that she's Jennifer Jensen, executive VP of some movie studio, and they all kind of look at her just like, you really? Like, okay. And then later she tells Taye Diggs that she's not, and that she was like the assistant who got fired and stole the invitation from the real Jennifer, who is a real bitch. And if you've seen the deleted scenes, it's Debbie Mazar playing her boss. And I think the reason they deleted it is because like the character, they just felt like didn't fit with the movie. Like she was kind of like on her own frequency. But the thing is, like, had she been there, like as entertaining as she was, like that would have just been too much bitchery. Like you already have Famke Jensen playing Evelyn, and then to have Debbie Mazar as well, it would just be like, why are there's so many like really mean, bitchy, dark-haired women here at the same time?
Well, but I mean, because that's another thing that I feel like, I mean, even the people who aren't bitchy or, just like, 'cause I don't even get like a wonderful, delicious kind of Melrose Placey bitchery from, like the interactions and everything like that. It just feels cold. And it just feels just deeply impersonal. And I'm craving like some drama. I want the soap opera of it all. Yeah. And the thing is,
well, that's why I mean, it's just between like the husband and wife.
But see, I don't get it between them. You mentioned the original, and between Vincent Price, and I don't remember the name of the actress who plays his wife in the original, but the two of them had this wonderful kind of coquettish upper class ribaldry that they passed, or ribaldry that they passed between each other, and it was very entertaining. It was almost like a battle of wits, like they were trying to kind of like see who could be more snide and more vicious, but all the while being very kind of like polite and masking insults as compliments and things like that.
But
And I don't know,
it's updated. That's just the temperament of people. In the late '90s, where it is more Melrosian, if you will. But as I was gonna say, the other thing that the issue that came up is that Taye Diggs' character Eddie. There's never any Zacks in any of these movies, but Eddie is adopted. That's his whole thing. He's like, I had nothing to do with this. I was adopted. He's like the Jerry Seinfeld. Like, what do you mean?
If Jerry Seinfeld had been in this movie, that would have made it more entertaining. Just watch him walking around that house. And looking into that slime bowl, that like little cauldron thing that
Ali Larder falls in it, and he's just like,
yeah,
have a nice life,
right?
We're not doing this anymore.
Because even everything leading up to that, like everything about their banter, and not just Ali Larder and Taye Diggs, but like the whole group, everything about their banter felt to me like it was the introduction of shadows of characters. It wasn't even like actual characters. It felt more like breakdowns. You know what I mean? When you either read a script or you audition for a role, they give you breakdowns, which is like a little, like maybe sentence or two that give you kind of the background and the idea of the character, so you know kind of what to go on without reading the entire screenplay.
Yeah.
And and that's what I feel like I'm watching. Like I'm just kind of like, but even that it feels like incredibly vague. I'm just kind of like getting, it's not a nuance. Nuance is too distinct. I feel like I'm getting, like I said, a shadow or an outline, a chalk outline of a character. Because
they're basically saying like, this is my name and this is what I do for a living.
Yes.
And you have that as like, okay, with the Bridget Wilson character, who people should know
Celebrity.
from I Know What You Did Last Summer. She was Elsa Shivers. Sarah Michelle Gellar's sister in that movie.
The worst sister on earth.
I'm sure there's worse, but yeah,
she's bad.
She comes in here and her whole shtick, like she's got the camera and she's like, I used to be a game show host and I need to like earn or fuck my way back into the industry. And there was a really peculiar line that Sarah, Ali Larder's character, says, where she's just like, somebody's trailer park is showing, and it's just like that seemed a little like out of care. Like, she's supposed to be like the virtuous, like the girl next door, like, especially as we saw in the deleted material where, we're supposed to feel sympathetic to this character. Like she got fired from her job by this nasty piece of work of a woman played by Debbie Mazar. And now like here she is coming into the house and like right off the bat, she's just like insulting the other people. That's not like final girl energy there, unless she did it in like a funny way where we like actually were on board with her at that point. And like you said, like we're just given like sort of like the breakdown of these of who these people are. So yeah, I agree, and to a certain extent, like those characters, like the initial surprise guests or just like the strangers, like for the most part they're not really all that interesting. Like I'd say that Chris Kattan's character adds his own little spice to it, and like even like Peter Gallagher as the psychiatrist, like he sort of like has this like this weird condescending like vibe to him, but yeah, like Ali Larder and just like, okay, like you just wanted a pretty face in there, and like same with Taye Diggs. Like those two are probably like the most boring. You know what? Maybe we're like gonna have another another final couple who just sucked and did not deserve to be at the end.
Oh my God! Are they
That's
going
a trend? Yeah.
They're going to invade the circle that you described. I think in our last pod, you named like the last. The three.
In Hollow Man, it was because we had Linda and Matt in Hollow Man, and then we haven't done a podcast for Bride of Chucky yet, but Jason Takes Manhattan. But I'd say those final couples of Jesse and Jade and
Rennie and Sean.
Good memory. Yeah, Rennie and Sean from Friday 8. And then the other one, we did do the podcast for this, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I guess even like the sequel of just Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. again. Julian Ray. Yeah, just a trend. And it's like like late 90s, especially early 2000s, of just like, let's get like the dullest, like most like problematic characters who are gonna have this like quasi attraction love interest to one another, and they're gonna be the heroes of the story. They're gonna be the ones that make it out alive. Like that's
they're gonna
I don't even
survive.
hate these two that like I just thought it was funny that now that you're really making me think about the characters, and just like yeah, they were like the least interesting, like and we spent the most time with them out of most like the other guests, because there's like that huge extended sequence of them kind of like wandering around the basement and getting lost and like rewiring the electrical socket, and then like going into the blood and all that. I don't think they're terrible, but I do agree that like they're probably the worst of the non-characters that we see.
But
here.
also for balance's sake, though, I will say I can see seeds being planted for Ali Larter, to her character, to kind of be imbued with, if not final girl energy, at least 90s strong woman energy. I mean, because like her willingness after she feels screwed over, like this was something I could hook into a little bit. When Tay's like standing there on the diving board about to dive into that cauldron thing, and she's like, oh my god, Tay, whatever his name is, she runs after him.
Eddie!
And Tay Diggs! Oh, it's my name, of course.
Yeah.
But let's change his name to Zach. Zach! And she runs over to go and save him. And or at least help him. And it's like, okay, that goo, I couldn't tell if it was blood or if it was like blood slime or what the fuck it was supposed to, or molasses. I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be. I mean, yeah, or molasses, because it was dark enough to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, he like falls in. She's like
Thick
reaching,
and
like
goopy,
panicking. And totally risking her own safety, because, you know, you get, if it is molasses and you get that shit like in your nose or mouth hole, it can, if you inhale enough, it can create like a pocket and you can like suffocate. So I'm like, you are risking your own life to try and save a guy who was just kind of like, you kind of felt fucked over, who also has like the possessed goat devil eyes, and who you don't know all that well. You've exchanged a few, dare I call them, barbs, or just quips or wittices. They're not witty, so I don't know, just pleasantries. Let's put it that way. You've gotten to know each other a little bit, but so I'm like, okay, you're putting it all on the line out of the goodness of your heart for somebody you barely know because they might be in trouble. That's pretty virtuous. But and then later when she's, I don't know, I got something from her confrontation with Jeffrey Rush later in the movie after he gets framed, as it were, and his blood on his hands and everything, and she thinks he's the one who killed Peter Gallagher, right? And and she's pointing the gun at him and everything, and she's not listening to him, and I'm like, good, don't listen to him.
No, because that's the thing that I would argue, you know, kind of takes her down a rung, because she's being manipulated in this situation to think that this is the villain that she needs to shoot. So that's kind of like an anti-final girl quality, to be tricked in a way like that.
But I think he's also a villain. He's pretty villainous. This is all happening because of him. Okay, I have to ask you two huge questions. We'll get back to like, you know, the horrible characters in a second, but okay. First huge overarching question. And I don't know if there is a definitive answer or if this is something that you can just answer from your own point of view with this movie.
I'm waiting.
The hauntedness of the hill, of the house.
Yeah.
Was it always there? And that's what made the inmates more powerful, so they could like overtake the asylum and the evil doctor and the nursing staff and everything? Or did they make it that way because of all him and the inmates together, just because of all their collective negative acts that were committed in the space, and that's what made it the house on Haunted Hill?
I would say the latter. That was more of what the story seemed to be implying. It's just that it was it was just like the energy of like all of the evil, it's like The Grudge, like, people
Sure.
were killed in very violent and evil ways, that it's just like all that energy manifested into the house and just became part of it.
Like an environmental memory.
Yeah, because I didn't think that it was never like, it was built on an Indian burial ground or whatever. Like that's the thing. It's just like it's a strange title. And this isn't really like the fault of this movie. Like it's just going back to the original of just like, is the house haunted or is the hill haunted? Like, because it's just like, it's just the house, but it's on a haunted hill. It's not like Haunted House on Hill,
The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, you could take that title and you could rework it into so many different iterations and properties and sell them to Netflix, and they'll take them and then remake them in 20 years or so, and you're set for life. Throw in someone there that sort of resembles Vincent Price or John Waters,
or at least it's just or just is named after him.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, because they hired him, or like because he read for the part, and I guess like at first they're just like, well, yeah, like we'll for sure have you in our movie, because at the time he was an Oscar nominated actor. They were just like, they were just confused, like, why do you want to be in this movie? I think it was for Shakespeare in Love, but they're just like, why do you want to be in this movie? And he said, just like, you know what, I've done all these other things, I want to work on a movie that's just that I can just relax on, like, I can just have a good time and not feel the pressure of like, any of that like A-list bullshit. And they're just like, yeah, sure. Bug on my desk. So
you showed him who's boss.
I did. So yeah, he came on board, and they didn't really like have a specific look or vibe for the character. They weren't necessarily remaking the character, like Vincent Price, into a character. But I think that they sort of had this idea of just making, like, giving him this like John Waters mustache, and then eventually he just like, he became the Vincent Price character of just like incorporating all of those qualities into him.
Sleazy character.
Yeah.
My other question is, okay, this is we're jumping ahead again, but we'll jump back. We always do. That end title blurb sequence button, whatever we want to call it.
Right.
What the fuck was that?
So you're talking about like like the post credits. See, you call it a button. Everyone else in the world calls it a post credits. Yeah. Okay. It's almost like a Shining, like you always were the caretaker. It's just like.
Oh no! Oh my god, that's abominable. Okay,
so or I mean, it could be. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, The Shining can be interpreted so many ways. You could take it to mean that they were, because I mean, like, they're the descendants. Essentially, which is another like conceit of just like, how did you have these two people who somehow went off in their own ways and then came together in life and became married and then wound up at the house for all that shit to happen. Assume, like, because I think Evelyn was one of the descendants. I'm not sure. They were like reading all the names, and the only one that they questioned was the Peter Gallagher character, because they're just like, wait, I'm not seeing him on here. And that's another thing, another nitpick, which I think is a valid nitpick, is just like, how is it not possible that you would consider that maybe someone just didn't take the last name of that of that descendant? Like, it just, like they're just assuming that anyone 60 years later is gonna have the exact same last name, because names don't change during marriage or anything like that. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm
purebreds.
I'm going off on a tangent here. Yeah, back to the button. It could have been a situation where that was their ancestors, or just like the people who they were the descendants of, or it could sort of be a thing where like they were taken by the house, like they were taken by the spirits of the house, and this is their afterlife. They're like constantly stuck in the house on Haunted Hill now, and like being tortured by the inmates for all of eternity.
Right, which continues that whole sins of the father visited on the head of the children, or the descendants kind of thing that they have going. Like that. That makes a little bit more sense to me if that's what that was. But I have to tell you, I sat through the credits, just like on my phone.
I mean, I've seen that before. I just turned the movie off when they're like, how the hell do we get down from here? So I didn't like bother watching it. I've seen that scene before. It's not like, to me, it's not really part of the movie. It's just more of just like, look at that. It's there. Yeah.
It's there. But so I mean, it just like that. It just completely made me say like, again, like a question over my head, just like, what is this? What is it about?
We do see that same circumstance, that situation of like the two people in the same pose of what they're going through, but it's earlier on in like sort of like the montage of like all the like the 1930s, like the inmates taking over the asylum. So it very well could be a thing that their souls are now trapped within the house, and now they've just kind of been placed into the same situation that those two people were. Because if that was the case, if those were their ancestors or whatever, they're dead, and that wouldn't make any sense if they survived and then got out, because like they're basically killing them on the slab there. So I think it's more so, if I had to make a definitive conjecture of the question that you're bringing up, I would say that that's what it means, is that their souls are now trapped in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's strange, because then what happened? So I guess that big naked lady,
the Rorschach
cloud, naked lady Rorschach cloud, that I'm actually quite fond of. I enjoyed that design even more so than the big bad reveal in Nope. In case anybody hasn't seen Nope yet, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I preferred this big bad reveal in this movie to that one. The design is more
because just like the big sort of like ink blot thing with the naked ladies, and they did it in a way, because I was watching some of the features. They were initially going to do it like a perfect like mirrored image of itself, but they're like, no, let's sort of like just skew it a little off center, so it's not like perfectly mirrored. The only thing that I don't like about it is because like the faces of all the characters that it claims show up, and that's fine. That like I like that, but when they have this like CGI Bridget Wilson, and she's just like, Sarah, wait, you have to stay for my show, and I'm like, oh, that's bad. That was bad CGI. And I love like Allie's reaction to it. She's just like, oh my god.
And actually from that I kind of got like a kitsch factor, but not even like House on Haunted Hill kitsch. I got like the OG black and white Little Shop of Horrors that had like Jack Nicholson as like the masochistic dental patient in it. I think it was his first movie. And but I mean, just because like in that rendition of the story, like the man-eating plant grows these buds, these giant kind of sunflower-looking things, and the sunflowers open up, and the face of the victims is like printed almost like on the what do you call it? Like whatever the pollen is on the stamen. I don't even know how to call flowers, but the frame, the face of the flower is the face of the victim. And I kind of like thought, oh, that's kind of kitschy and dumb and fun, like just watching people show up. But it's like, why show up saying lines that aren't relevant? Again, if you're gonna go there, like go the whole way. Have like And they kind of did with some of the characters. I felt like whether they were saying things that were applicable from the past or even like enticing, like come be with us. It's like, again, at The Shining, like come play with us, Danny. Like do that, do more of that. Like talk about like how cool it is to be part of this naked lady blob. I would have been more on board if it a little bit more of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
A little bit
So
more
you
of
like the Bridget Wilson. Come stay for my show.
No. She could have said something else. I mean, I agree with you. She could have said something else, but it would have been. I mean, find some of they're sirens. Find some way to like make them entice more so. Not like that. That's not enticing.
No. Well, even going back to like that relationship between those two characters specifically, because like I said, that line that she says at the beginning when she's just like someone's trailer park is showing. Yeah. And then they sort of set it up like, she has concern for this character when she goes missing, when they go down and find like just like the pool of blood and the broken camera on the floor. And what does she say? They're just like, is she okay?
Oh, right. Is she okay? Just the most flat, dead.
Yeah.
I barely care.
Because Ali Larter's like, I don't know.
Oh, that's what it is, yeah.
but there's like this whole thing like later on where she's like thinks that she's hearing her voice and it's like, I'm coming for you, like, just keep talking, like the house is playing tricks on her or whatever. So just like, like you had this sort of like almost like this semblance of a camaraderie between these characters, but it doesn't make any sense, which is like, at the beginning of just like insulting her under your breath and then, being concerned later on. And then at the end, like having the, like, you got to stay for my show. So I agree, like just in terms of like the interrelationship stuff, like between the characters, like a lot of it is kind of misguided and misdirected, but I do disagree with you just in terms of like the prices and just like all of their stuff, because I enjoy that. Like that's the Melrosian energy between them. That's like the vitriol that I appreciate, and just how everyone else around them is just like, who the fuck are these people? I guess like that's, you got money, you can just do all this crazy shit. But I think that just in terms of, because you speak about how these are just breakdowns of characters. Like, I still find that enjoyable. I still, like they are very one note for the most part, but they fill an archetype, and that's all that they're really needed for. Like the rest of the movie can do whatever it needs to for me.
And if the movie did what it needed to for me, then because that's the thing, is like they're all standing around talking, but they're not. I can't grapple onto any kind of subject matter that they're sharing. You know me, I love the interpersonal. I love behavior-based cinema. Like if I'm going to learn about characters by watching them interact with each other, that's great. But if everything that I'm watching them say feels written and poorly written, like another draft would have been helpful and they just didn't write it, then it's hard for me to get on board. And also I think I spent a lot of time while they were in that kind of like, I don't know what, atrium or the front area of the house, when everybody's just kind of like bantering and just like learning about each other and like whatever.
The parlor.
I was just kind of like, could we get to this? Could we could something happen? That's why when finally like Tay's jumping in, I'm just going to keep referring to like him jumping in that big old bucket, but it's actually like, okay, something's happening, like finally. And then when he comes to find her and she's like, oh my gosh, you're up there and I've just been like a crazy person, like here in the muck and the mire of it all, and now I'm getting pulled in, and then it just completely lost me because I was just I don't even know what happened.
I think that like for me, like what kind of hooked me in is that there's sort of like a mystery element to it, because the doors, like all the things came down and locked them in, and Chris Kattan, Pritchett is freaking out. Everyone else is like, well, ain't that strange? And you have Jeffrey Rush, and he's just like, well, that's interesting. And then, Famke Janssen comes down and she's just like, it's like, you've really outdone yourself this time, you sick fuck, or, whatever she says. So everyone's kind of reacting to it in a different way, but nobody's kind of taking ownership. So we don't know, like, is it the house? Is he doing something? Like, is it him or is it her? Because you know that there's like sort of this thing going on between them, and they're both scheming, but we don't really know if it's like, it could be like three different things. And, you know, you even see that when the Whistler guy who is, you know, working for him is in the house, in the little control room downstairs, and Jeffrey Rush goes down. He's just like, you know, let me know before you pull a stunt like that. And he's like, I didn't do that. So it's kind of like, well, then who did? It must be her. Well, you know, that's the, like, there's always this back and forth when they're conspiring with their person, of just being like, somehow it was her and I know it. And they're like, no, it had to be, but how did they do it? So I like the fun of that. It's almost like, could it be one of them, or is it the house? So there's this like constant like mystery of just like, what is happening here? Because you don't really see, like, nothing really happens like until the, like you said, the blood vat thing. That's fine, because I'm still like intrigued by the scheming and the human drama between these two.
Okay, it's not scintillating enough for me, but I will say again, like, what
I think you just don't have an appreciation for Famke Janssen that I do, because I
appreciate her. I feel like she was wasted in this. I feel like
I think that she stole the show.
No, I think they could have given her so much more to work with that relationship too. Because I mean, even hold on. Okay, I was about to talk about something else, but because even the wardrobe bothers me. Like, all three women look like they shopped at the same store. They all look like they're dressing like the Friends. You know, like, I feel like Famke Janssen's dress, even that she's wearing, I feel like Monica Geller has worn that dress, and it has been borrowed by Rachel Green and by Phoebe. And I know their character names, but I mean, everything looks just a little like, I mean, for someone who's supposed to have as much money as she is, and for this to be like the delectable night that she's waiting for, like, I like, come on, deck it out, honey. Look like you bought something not at Forever 21 or something like that.
She should have come out like dressed the way that Rachel did when she was the bridesmaid, of just like that big like pink poofy.
No, but I mean,
that's what this movie had to be for you to like it. It just like replace all the characters with the cast of Friends. You know, then
I wonder, well, who would be who? Let me see.
No, we don't need to play that game again.
DM me if you have any ideas. But no, okay, so no, I mean, that's not all that I need, but I mean, that's like something in terms of just like the attention to costume and everything. If we're gonna, like, you know, create like cardboard cutouts of characters, like, well, then let's go whole hog. I feel like it could have gone more in any direction that it attempted than it did, and I just feel like a lot of fence sitting. And again, like I said, I think the director is motivated by things that don't necessarily draw or attract my attention innately. But one thing that did, I was more compelled by the confrontation. It came out of nowhere, but the anger that Taye Diggs like displayed when he's talking to Chris Kattan, and Chris Kattan's holding that scotch, and then he just, what does he do? Smack it out of his hand or whatever, and it breaks, and then he's just like, all the scotch in the you know.
I think he says,
whatever he says.
Where are we now, or something like that, and he's like, out of scotch, thanks to you, ass.
That one. I had more sympathy for. Yeah, I had more sympathy for him in that moment, though, because I felt like, oh, I understand that. I understand he needs to drink to get through this evening, and this guy's just screaming at him like he knows something that that could make a difference if he shared it with them.
The thing is, I feel like this movie would not happen if everyone just stayed together in the same space.
Okay.
Because are the ghosts gonna come up and just like kill all of them together? Because that never happened. Like, the ghosts only kind of got them when they were on their own, and most of the kills actually were committed by people. I mean, we don't see how what's his face dies in the computer room there, because he just turns around and his face is like melon scooped out. But I mean, I mean, it could be. It's never confessed by Evelyn that she killed the guy, but we know that she's not above that because she's, you know, obviously going around and killing other people to make it, you know, to frame her husband.
Right.
So I think that just like really, it's not until like the end of the movie when like the thing really comes out of the walls that people start dying left, right, and center because they're getting sucked into the thing. But I mean, like that only happened because he like pushed her through the wall or whatever. Like up until then, it was just sort of like little spirits running around like Dr. Vanakit. But it was like that thing in the wall was like the big bad, you know?
Well, because that's another thing that I'm glad you brought that up because, again, there was a potential for a hook there, but by then I was so tired I couldn't even be bothered. But I was like, oh, that is almost interesting. The confrontation between Famke and Jeffrey in that, dungeon room? I don't even know what it is, but like where before we get the reveal of like Bridget and her disemboweled or dismembered body and everything
Miss
like
Marr.
that and all that. Exactly. But like when he comes to after playing possum and starts like, you know, just wailing on Famke and throws her through that wall and everything. And he has this red hot murder in his eyes. Like he is out for blood now. He knows everything he needs to know. He's got his ass covered. Everybody already thinks she's dead. He's putting it out there on the table. And then he pushes her throws her through this wall. And then he sees the wall, recognizes it for the evil that it is without completely understanding, just knowing this is some bad shit. We need to get out of here. And I think he just says her name and she kind of looks back at him. And for a moment, it's almost like there is an actual like marriage between these people. But see, those levels, I would have loved a stage set with like, yes, those levels, like they have to enjoy each other and be the only two people in each other's lives who can do this with each other, you know, like they are the perfect candidates for being married to one another because nobody else would ever want to be married to that. And I got a taste of it. I would have liked
because I got a sense from them like that they actually really, because she says like, you know, from the moment I first laid eyes on you, I've always been in love with your money or whatever she says. But I got a sense from them, especially in that moment, that they probably were happy at one time. Like, you know, when they first got married, like that there was a moment in that marriage for however brief it was that they did enjoy each other's companionship. And I did kind of like get that, you know, in that moment when you know, all of a sudden he became protective of her. Cause it was like, you know, it's all like fun and games, even though it was just like, you know, they did kind of both take it over. I mean, more so her than him. Because she actually murdered Peter Gallagher, but just you know, it just like when shit got real, they're like, okay, time out, you know, like we're gonna call a truce for now.
And that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I like that.
That was very like almost George and Martha. He was afraid of Virginia Woolf for me, and I think that's.
I mean, I was almost like thinking of like Hellraiser and like Julia, of just because, you know, like when we first see Julia in Hellraiser, like she's got that like softer look, and like maybe that's what kind of like or Evelyn was originally, and then she just like turned into this like hardened woman who will kill for, you know, whatever her is motivating her in that moment. So I'm all for these two characters. I mean, like, I don't have any issue with them like you do. But I mean, I agree. I think I could. I mean, you can't say that like there was too much of them in the movie. Obviously, like they didn't use her too much. But I mean, like, I don't know if like the movie necessarily needed to have more of them, but it definitely could have fleshed out the other characters more. I think, you know, one thing that I really wish that we had more of was seeing other areas of this house other than the basement, because I think we spend so much time in the basement, and like, not that like I don't think that the like, because we were talked about the atmosphere originally, because I don't think that the atmosphere is like particularly like engrossing, but I don't think that it's like completely shit either. But I feel that just because we spend so much time down there, it's sort of like, you know, everything looks the same. Almost like, it's just like you turn a corner and it's the same thing. Whereas I feel like the house itself, and they built that. That was like a miniature that they built. That the facade of it, like this whole
Sure.
like Art Deco design, which was very impressive. How they did that, and then just like even that entrance, like that atrium, and like the grand staircase, and all that area. Like I really liked that. I wanted to see more of that. I would have liked to see them kind of exploring, like in the original House on Haunted Hill, where they were just going all over the house. Like they're just like
Yeah, the
searching different
bedrooms
levels
and stuff.
and for
Yeah.
clues, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like that probably would have added more and made it more interesting. And we talked about this with 13 Ghosts, because I think that movie absolutely is an improvement on this when it comes to set design, and especially with like the ghosts itself. Like that movie really far exceeds anything that this movie does. But I still think
I
that like
agree.
the
I agree.
story in that movie is a little, like, even though this one has its issues, that one in 13 Ghosts is so convoluted that when they start like explaining everything and the lore behind it and like how any of it like means anything, I'm like, I don't understand this, just get back to the action. Whereas this, I mean, it's a simple premise. It's like these people, they need to survive the night so they can like get the money, whatever. That I more or less they followed that plot line through to the end. But it would have been more interesting if there were like the other like side stories of just like you have these characters who are scheming, but if there was like other mysteries that people had to explore the house, and we got to see more of it than just that that basement.
Yeah, that mystery element I definitely felt lacking for me too. I mean, I get more of a mystery element from the movie Clue, and if this could have been some kind of wonderful hodgepodge or cornucopia of like a little Clue, a little Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a little the original House on Haunted Hill, a little like what happened, just like if there could have been more influences that were clear, because that's another thing I think one of the master criticisms I had while I was sitting through it, trying to glom onto something, and a word that just kept occurring to me was soulless. It just felt, and then I kept thinking other lisses that it is for me. It feels soulless because it feels largely corporately motivated. It feels bloodless, even though there's a lot of blood in it, or not a lot, but there's blood in it. But bloodless in the sense that like I don't ever feel stakes. I don't ever feel like, oh my god, and also toothless in the sense that the threat is never really something that it's so mysterious that it's almost too mysterious to the point where I don't really feel like, girl, you better watch out. I'm just like, oh, things are happening. So and that's as strong as it gets for me. That's why I think 13 Ghosts is and always has
I think
been
that
a stronger
13 Ghosts is a
executed movie for me.
13 Ghosts is a better remake, because that original 13 Ghosts is not a good movie. We talked about that when we did the podcast. Go listen to that one or watch it on YouTube if after this one if you want. But I think that the original House on Haunted Hill is a really good movie for its time. Sure. And it, especially because it has like that pedigree of Vincent Price's involvement and William Castle. I'm not sure, was that William Castle's first sort of foray into the like gimmicky horror, because I think the thing there was like Emergo, and that was like the giant skeleton that came out in the theater, very much like think of like Scream 2 with like the ghost faces flying overhead in the theater there, like that's what they did with the skeleton. So it's just I think that movie was just like a lot of fun back in the day, and I think just in terms of like recapturing that fun, they did that, but they didn't really elevate the story just in terms of like what had already come before it in that movie. But if you go back to the original House on Haunted Hill, it's been a while since I've seen it. I own it, but I believe that there weren't ever any ghosts, and it was all a scheme by the character, by Vincent Price's character, to murder his wife and make it seem as though like it was an accident or something. But there was like this whole thing where the characters are kind of like, is the house haunted or isn't it?
Yeah. Or was it? Question mark.
Yeah.
Put Dolly away and
Yeah.
then close the door. End of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
in
fun.
that movie also there was no twist of them being locked in the house. They could leave at any time from what I remember.
That I can't remember for sure. I think they were all motivated by their greed also, or their need for money.
There was another, like, because there's actually a feature on the Blu-ray or even the DVD, because I think it was part of the original DVD release back in 2000 whenever it came out. But it was like a really fun feature. It's called like The Tale of Two Houses, and it was just sort of juxtaposing the original to the remake, and just sort of the differences, like the inflation of the reward amount of like the money, and also the fact that in this movie everyone but two people died, and in that one only two people died, and just sort of like the differences of like Evelyn's like faked suicide and shit like that. So it's an interesting watch for sure if you have it. But I think definitely just in terms of a remake, I don't think this outdoes the original, but it's its own thing. Whereas I feel like 13 Ghosts, if it came down to like, you know, which one are you going to watch? Like, I would just watch the remake twice and never even bother with the original again, because it's such a stupid movie.
I mean, I can still, you know, get a kick seeing Margaret Hamilton do anything, but
she does nothing. She does nothing in that
movie.
No.
But okay, I can even get a kick out of watching her do nothing. But that said, like, you're talking to somebody who tried to sit through the fucking Paul Lynde Halloween special. Have you ever seen this? It's on YouTube. And I tried to sit through it for like Halloween festivities while I was doing laundry and stuff like that, just to kind of be seasonal. And oh my God, it was nuts. Like, we got stuck in this dream sequence where he wanted to be a truck driver. And I'm like, where's Margaret Hamilton? Where's the witches? Where's the ghouls? Where's the gay? Like, even. and it just, and she's in it. She plays like his maid. Yeah. But no, she's not in it. And she's not really doing anything. And it's like, oh, okay. So I say that, but I don't know. I think I enjoyed her more in 13 Ghosts than I did. Because at least she gets interactions with the little boy. I don't know. I'd have to watch.
It's another movie, another podcast. Another thing that I really love in this movie is the score, because you've got that like pipe organ thing, like start like right from the get go, that really sets the mood. And I believe the composer's name is Don Davis. I'm gonna look it up real quick, but I think that he also did the score for Valentine. So I think he was contracted with Warner Brothers for a lot of those late 90s, early 2000s horror pictures.
Did we ever talk about this? I feel like we did at some point. I don't know if
Valentine?
it was off pod or not.
We probably
no, not Valentine. But you brought up Valentine, and while you're looking, I just want to tread water, because with Valentine, I glom onto that like nobody's business, because we get all the backstory and the histories and the fucked up soap opera-ness of it all, the nighttime telly aspect, and I think. I can't remember if I've ever brought this up on the pod before, but I think one of the least compelling things for me, kind of as a rule, I don't walk in with this mindset thinking I'm going to hate this, but oftentimes movies about people who know each other I find so much more compelling than people who don't and who need to kind of find out about each other. I'm much more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess beguiled by histories, friendship histories, relationship, patterns and things like that, and people hashing them out on stage. I mean, I love plays, and that's all plays are, is people talking about 30 years ago this thing happened and here's a speech about it, and I'm an actor and I've prepared the emotionality of it, so watch me. And I'm all about that. And I feel like if I'm just getting a bunch of people just kind of like, smiling, half smiling at each other and winking, or just kind of being cruel to each other for no reason. Because that's where it isn't Melrose Place for me. Melrose Place is all about the relationships and the histories and
Everything
the,
has to be Melrose Place here.
But you brought up the Melrose Place of it all, and I'm saying,
well, no, I think you actually
me.
Initially brought it up, but
yes, I brought it. Oh, Jesus, go on.
But okay, no, I can see what you're saying just in terms of, already having a built-in relationship of characters. The problem with that is that that could be unsuccessful if it's not done properly, because if you're just coming in there with like a bunch of exposition, that is boring. I don't want to see that. I like seeing like strangers, the things coming together, because I mean, like, that to me is like Agatha Christie, or just and then there were none, or just like murder mystery style. I don't, like we already went over, like I it wasn't done to its fullest potential here, but I think that in terms of like when characters do know each other and they're able to like play off of that, like I do think that Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen do, then that works successfully. And I can see what you're saying about Valentine, even though like I hate those women and their sort of history, which is based on this idea that they bullied this kid when they were in junior high and stuff. Like, they're not sympathetic characters. And I think like a lot of the shit between them is kind of trite, but I can see what you're saying. I'm a fan of either. It doesn't need to be what it is, but I mean, like, look at 13 Ghosts, and I'm talking about the remake, when you have the family and like those characters are so disinteresting that they're just like, they're taken out, they're just like hidden for the rest of the movie. But like no sooner did they get there, they're just like, okay, let's just hide that kid, let's just get him out of there, like just do whatever. So I don't need, just so he can just be like, oh, mom got burned in a fire, or whatever.
In a file. But at least I know where they stand with each other. Like, I kind of get like the vibe and again, like I feel like I was grappling for it, but if and trying to find like, well, what's your story? What's your story? And not enough of them were interesting, especially Peter Gallagher's for me. I think he just seemed to kind of raise his eyebrows a lot and just look impressed.
Well, that was another thing. It's just like, how did he get in there? Because it was sort of like he was her spy, her mole. Which just like it. But that's the thing that like it's like, here was this list that she made, which was then shredded. And not to go back to this, but I feel like we have to now. She made this list, it was shredded. He made a list, it was deleted, and someone or something made a new list. But then that list got tampered with as well, because somehow Peter Gallagher winded up being in there too, who, these are all supposed to be strangers, but like, she knows him, and he just conveniently had to like, obviously there was like, it was almost like a back and forth. Like, I can just see Famke Janssen going in and like changing something on the computer, and then like being like, ha ha ha, and leaving, and then Jeffrey Rush like watching her and being like, oh, you think you can pull a fast one on me, and goes and changes it back to something new. He maniacally laughs and walks off. She comes back, and they're just like, they keep doing this on repeat. Like, I'm going to change the guest list. By the end of it, it's just like, everyone is supposed to be a stranger, but they all know each other, but they don't know that we know that they know that we know. It is friends.
Maybe I always thought like maybe it was just the ghost of Dr. Combs, and maybe he knew what her plan was and he was interested in seeing that play out because it was so mean-spirited.
It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but it still makes more sense than whatever the fuck the thing was in 13 Ghosts, like the eye of the, I don't remember. That's how little I retained of that. Just the ghosts look really cool, and so did the house. But yeah, the music in this, really excellent, because it just has that like very vintage feel to it. So yeah, Don Davis, he scored Valentine. He also scored the Matrix movies back in the day. So yeah, a lot of work with Warner Brothers, and I just love like the opening of that movie, because it like segues really well with like the Dark Castle logo when it comes in, and you just hear that pipe organ, and I love like the kind of like the stop motion, like those screws coming out of the wall, and like whatever that like wire is like wrapping around it. Like it really sets the aesthetic for everything to come. So all of that I'm completely on board with. I love all that.
I think if the rest of I think that's another criticism I have in terms of just the look of the movie. I would have preferred something that looked a little, I mean, it's odd to say this because I feel like at times it looks very cheap, but at other times it looks very kind of not cheap, but very clean, almost too clean. Like if we're going for like this grittier, like kind of like backstory and this like they do spend a lot of time under the house, in the bowels of the house, if you will, and if there's this long awaited history and everything like that, it's like, well, then I don't think everything can be solved by grit and grime, like the reboot started to take shape post Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, but or remake, whatever you want to call it, in 2003. But I mean, a grittier version of this, maybe that would have helped it. A grittier aesthetic. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, if everybody's just being mean spirited and it just looks grittier, it does sound like every other.
I don't know, because I sort of latched more onto like the opulence of like that Art Deco style. And all that. And I feel like like what they did in 13 Ghosts is obviously was much more opulent and nicer, but I still really liked it. Like it felt like we were being transported back in time for a bit there when we first came in, and I wish that they would really kind of doubled down on that aspect of it. And again, that's why I feel like when we went to the basement, because and that's where I might disagree, because that all seemed like really gritty and like not.
Well, I just mean the resolution, the resolution of the picture. Like it looked more TV show to me than film, and I think that hurt the movie's watchability factor for me as well.
Well, one thing that I know, because I'm watching the features and all that, because apparently most of this was practical effects. And I think in the parts where you really can tell that it's practical effects, it looks good. But there's some CGI in there. And I feel like they kind of blended the two together in certain instances that it really kind of like undermines the beauty of the practicalness of what they did. Because there's like this scene when it's like overtaking Evelyn when she it's like consuming her, and apparently like all this that was like there was practical effects, but then they sort of like superimposed this digital image or however they did it. He was explaining, like the director was explaining in the thing, he was just like, no, that was all practical and stuff, but they had to do something. Like, but it doesn't look great. Like there, it could have been better. And there's one part that I like where they have her hand and it sort of like curls up into a fist and turns to ashes and just crumbles apart or explodes or whatever, and like that looked really good. Like I really liked that. Like if they had just done like focused more on that, but I feel like like 1999, we have to get the CGI. That's what studios like, even though it's more expensive or whatever. Like
I know it's so
knock yourselves out.
No, consistency. That's another thing that would have helped, just in terms of, I mean, you've got Craig Nicotero on your fucking team. Like,
was he in this?
He was one of the three names of the people under the practical effects in the opening credits, and I was like, wow. And that's why it was so impressive. I mean, even just seeing the scalpel go into that torso and the blood buoy up, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, there are practical effects in this thing. Because I always just remember the, like you call it, the opulence of the house and everything, but I just think of that like impossible height. And I think of just like kind of like when doesn't the fucking I mean, I love the idea of it, of this stained glass window and the backstory that we get from Chris Kattan and everything like that. But the fact that like the eyes, the CGI eyes, they look so cartoony, are like supposed to be, I think they're supposed to be imposing, like the house is watching you. I didn't get, but
sorry, what eyes?
The eyes, you didn't see them in the stained glass window? There's two like kind of like they look like pupils gathered in kind of like two corners of the stained glass, and they move slightly. It looks as though they're like kind of scanning the crowd when they're down there. And I was like, didn't need that. The stained glass window is enough. Chris Kattan's performance is enough. And that maybe that's another thing. It's just this director's, or maybe I don't know if it was the director's motive, or if it was just kind of like doing the studio's bidding, but whatever. Whoever's calling the shots here, doing too much when no, just take it easy. Take it easy. You got good actors. They'll do something with the script, and you may be able to create a moment. You may be able to not even create. You may be able to capture one.
What did you think of the? I forget what the machine was called that they put him in. It had
that thing with the man. What the fuck?
It was almost like it was like another one of those carnival rides where you go in and it just like spins around, and it's that was freaky. Like I liked how they did that.
But you stand in one place apparently, so it's like a flip book. So you see like animation happening behind you, and then somehow the animation turns supernatural, and it's just a face smiling at you. It was
I think the line that they said is just like it's enough to make a sane man insane and an insane man sane.
Right, which is that was the theory, wasn't it, of the doctor, that like, because they didn't even credit it. Not credit, but they didn't make it sound like they were endorsing it. They just made it sound like that. That crazy guy. That's the way he thought. Whoever it was who said it, I don't remember. But
Chris Kattan probably.
Chris Kattan talking about his dad.
Well, he knew all about the house. So.
Yeah, he knew all about the house. But the only thing I thought it was, again, conceptually unclear. I was like, well, wait. So what is happening? What is supposed to be? So is that guy real? And now he's is he trapped in there too? And now the thing unlocks him, or is it just in Jeffrey Rush's head that this is happening because of the suggestibility of like turning a sane man insane? Is that what we're watching happen? I don't know. And the mystery of it.
I don't like. I like the ambiguity of it all. Like that's one aspect. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It was a fun little set piece.
Yeah.
And it transported him back in, because it kind of like links back to the end of the button, as you will, when he's kind of like in place of the initial
Dr. Combs
medical staff, because in this scene they're like wheeling him down, and they're just like, we have to, because Dr. Vanaket does come out, but he doesn't look like Dr. Vanaket. He's like just skin with like no features, sort of thing. It's just and that's when they cut him open, and there's the whole thing with like the basketball or whatever it was, and then like becoming his head. And the more naked women with like blood running out of, like, gushing out of their mouths, and just really weird imagery. I almost got a sense of the Psycho remake. Remember just like that weird like little shots that Gus Van Sant would like insert into the murder scenes, where it was just like all of a sudden there'd be like a cow in the middle of the road or whatever, just like weird like quick cuts of just random stuff and naked women just like spliced in with the actual murders. But like in context with what's going on here, not like whatever they did in that movie.
But no, I mean, again, like I think if I don't even, if the mystery didn't work for me, and the just like the execution of it in and of itself as just like an aesthetic kind of like pleasant thing to watch, because I couldn't kind of figure it out, and not even like, if it could have been like a, oh my god, I can't figure it out, what is happening kind of thing, that's one thing, but it was more just kind of like, what? And it just left me. I was Ali Larder going, I don't know.
I don't know. Like this movie to me is just, it's a product of its time. It's late 90s. It has that late 90s vibe and aesthetic to it that I love. It's a fun movie. It doesn't make 100% clear sense or anything. I don't need it to.
Right.
It's just a fun ride.
Did we bring up Agatha Christie when we were discussing Identity? Was that it?
Probably.
Because I feel like we brought her up in another pod.
And you didn't like that movie either, which makes sense since it's strangers.
Yeah. Maybe it takes a very particular, and also if it's an homage to Agatha Christie, I haven't been exposed to any of her direct stories. I have a feeling if I saw them, I wouldn't like them. Because every time somebody says, this is an homage to Agatha Christie, I sit there and I go like, I can't connect with this. So maybe I never should read her until I've read every other mystery author. But
I guess.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll find at some point. I mean, like, well, I was going to say The Thing, but I mean, they don't have like histories with each other, but they do have like established work relationships and stuff like that by the time we meet them. But I'm sure at some point we'll find some kind of ensemble horror movie where it's a bunch of strangers in a situation, and the way it's executed is more on par with my palate.
Now that's what I want, appetite. Like a new Scream movie to be that, like just all strangers coming together and just like, who is Ghostface? We don't know any of them.
I mean, there are Saw movies that I like that are, that like pit strangers against each other and whatnot, but we still get to learn about them the more personal, the traps get and whatever. So I mean,
and honestly, like Saw is not my franchise. Like there's some movies that I really like in that like in the series, but for the most part, I'm just like, I don't feel that, at least like the initial run of movies really kind of concluded in a successful way, and I still have yet to see Spiral. I'll just put that out there, but
okay. I've seen it.
I know you have.
Yeah.
But, Is there anything else you want to say about House on Haunted Hill?
I tried. I honestly, interestingly enough, I noticed while I was watching it, I was just kind of like, I'm getting a similar sense that I did while I was watching Nope, actually, in the sense that, like, my leg wasn't pumping the way it was during Nope. Like, that was excruciating. But with this one, I was also home. I could just like pull out my phone if I wanted to. But I mean, I had to get up and do a few things, and I would pause it. I wouldn't just leave the room because I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. But when I'm sitting directly in front of it and I'm still missing things because I'm like, come on, meet me halfway, movie. And I just didn't feel like it was. I wish I could enjoy it more. But it's also, there are other Dark Castle movies that I do enjoy more than this one. This one was never like in my top tier. So,
That's funny. Yeah. I was gonna say that this like a lot of this for me is nostalgia, and we all know like how nostalgia is not real, just in terms of like how we actually see a movie in present day, and I think that this, like for you, like this was probably my least favorable viewing of this movie. I just kind of watched it and was just like, I remember this being better. I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. I dozed off quite a bit, as I usually do, but then I went back the next day and I just watched over the parts that I'm just like, okay, I think I missed this because I walked out of it, or I just, slept out of it and just felt like, oh, this isn't as good as I remember. But then I went back and I watched it because I'm like, I just want to make sure, because I don't want to like give it a lower grade because I fell asleep and
right.
was none the wiser. And I still think that I stand by what I'd say this is like a 3.5 stars out of 5 for me. Like, I definitely liked it more than what we did last week for Hollow Man, and I think just that's probably similar to what I would rate a 13 Ghosts. It just comes down to the elements of the movie that you like better, because there are movies, especially like we talked about this in the Halloween franchise, where there are certain nuances to every chapter which are better in some ways and worse in others, and it just depends on what you I'm going to use your words here, glom towards, because there are certain things that that the mainstream public might be dismissive of that you personally really like. So I don't know.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't do like a Dark Castle ranking. I don't even think I've seen every Dark Castle movie. At least like I've seen all three of the remakes that they've done. And that was the thing,
Yeah,
because it
same.
was like that's originally what this was supposed to be, what Dark Castle was supposed to be. It was just like remaking all of the William Castle pictures. And then it
Right.
just,
Yeah.
and I think that his daughter was initially an executive producer, or she was involved in some
Right.
capacity on this
Yeah.
movie. And then I guess she just was not happy with it and did not come back for 13 Ghosts. But then after the 13 Ghosts, they just stopped remaking William Castle movies. And I think they did Ghost Ship and Gothica until they got to another remake, which was House of Wax. And the only thing
Right.
that's sort of like William Castle-y about House of Wax is the fact that it was a movie that Vincent Price was in. But Vincent Price is like, that wasn't a William Castle movie. He's just an actor who's been
No.
in a lot of William Castle movies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah, and they didn't keep up that trend, and that was something that I really appreciated about the Dark Castle movies, because I at least felt that like the remakes that Dark Castle did were delivering so much more than the remakes of what a like Platinum Dunes, or whatever the
Oh.
like Dimension, or any of the remakes that they were doing, like, because that's where you get to like that gritty, like you're speaking
Sure.
about, like just like the everything's glossy and gritty, and like like the Scream 4 look of like I can't really tell what's going on here,
We should
just
do
in
a
terms of what
ranking
it
of
looks.
remakes at
A
some
ranking
point,
of
though. Like
remakes. Yeah, I was gonna
that'd
do
be
that for
interesting.
like
Not one that.
my main channel, but it's
Oh,
like
okay.
there's so many. Like, because I even started watching. Like I got through a few. Like I watched the Carrie remake, and I think
Oh.
Sorority Row and Fright Night. I think I got like three in. I was just
Oh.
like, this is gonna be very
That's
taxing. Like I don't know if I can
rough.
do this.
That's
Like
rough.
it's gonna take a while to
Yeah.
and like, there's certain like parameters that you'd have to set to, like what constitutes a remake.
Right.
Because
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
that like, because if you don't make a caveat like only applies to theatrical releases, because then you have to start introducing, like there was like an April Fool's Day that was like direct to DVD, and it's just like
Sure.
you could probably think of like that adds like 50 more remakes to the thing, or to the pile of movies you have to do, because that was like I did
Sure.
a video way back, and this is on my main channel, of all like the 90s teen horror that
Right,
had
yeah.
come out, and people were like bitching at me because they're just like, you're not even doing it like you're missing all these 90s movies, and you're like incorporating things that were released in 2000. And I'm just like, okay, here's the my like thought process here is that it for the 90s era of like what essentially is like the Scream era of like that, like CW
Yeah.
or WB or whatever, like that didn't start in the year 1990. That didn't come
No.
around until like 1996. That's when that era really started, and it went for like 5 years, and it still like spread into the 2000s, and especially
Yeah.
since a lot of those movies that came out in the early 2000s, like Scream 3 came out in 2000. It was released in like February
Yeah.
of 2000, and
Yeah.
I say that that's a 90s movie because they didn't shoot that and put it into production in the month of January and then release it at the
No,
beginning of
no.
February. That is a 90s movie.
Yes.
It was released,
Obviously
yeah.
made in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the only one on that list that was not a 90s movie was Valentine. And I'm just like, I don't care. It's of the same ilk. It came out
Right.
it came out in 2001. It was filmed in like the year 2000. Big fucking deal. But and I didn't include Final Destination because for whatever, like, I just don't see that as a 90s teen movie. I think that like the themes of that are just a little bit more mature than I would say of like your typical 90s teen fodder.
I don't know. I look at that poster though.
That's the one thing. Like the poster is very 90s teen for sure. And
Yeah.
speaking of it, like this poster too for like House on Haunted Hill, it's got like
God.
a very Scream-esque appearance to like even that original Scream, because you have Bridget Wilson in like the fort, like she's probably like the biggest face on there, almost like the Drew Barrymore, like the blonde, and then
Yeah.
all of the more prominent characters, because she's barely in the movie, are like tucked into the back of that shot of like the hand.
Yeah.
So yeah,
All
they're
awash
very
in red.
very Scream with that poster.
And yet not Scream enough as far as I'm concerned.
But I wouldn't consider House on Haunted Hill to be a 90s teen horror movie. Like they're not teens.
No, because they're not.
And
Yeah, they're not teens.
Yeah, they're not teens, and it's I think it's 90s. It's horror, but they're not teens. That's my takeaway with that.
They're the friends. They're they're the bargain basement Melrose Place.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's more Valentine, but yeah. Okay, I think that we should probably move on because
Yeah.
we've exhausted much of this. So anyway, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
Okay, so we have to pick a cherry on top, and I feel like this is going to be very difficult. So let's hear what you have to say first.
There's only one character who I think deserves to be the cherry on top, and I don't even know his name. Chris Kattan's character, that guy, because he's the only one who I was interested in terms of, like, basically anytime he was on screen, I was just kind of like, what is he thinking? I know what he's thinking. What is he feeling? I know what he's feeling, and I'm interested. I want to know, like, what is this like thing you're carrying around with you, your daddy issues and all that. I don't know. I found him compelling. So that's for me.
I fully disagree. Not that I don't find him entertaining, but I think that like his shtick to me was very one note. That was just his running gag. Like I compare him a lot to, like, he was sort of like the Matthew Lillard character in 13 Ghosts. Although with Matthew Lillard, we were getting so much more, and not just in terms of like Matthew Lillard's performance, but just in terms of that character. Like he was so much more integral to everything that was going on. Chris Kattan here is just sort of like, he just shows up and he's like, yeah, this is like stupid. But then like his actions are very contradictory of what he's doing, and this is like the same line that he's touting the entire movie. So I can't really get on board with him. Like I you know, just like whatever. I think that like for me, it's either one of the prices. It's, and I would say probably Jeffrey Rush, because I think he's just, bulge your eyes out at me. I really like his performance here. I think like he like really embodies like that fun of the, like he's just having a great time. And especially when you hear about like why he wanted to do the movie, it's just because I just want to like do something that isn't like what I'm used to doing. I think that he embraced that. Like he knew that this was nothing highbrow, and he just embraced it, and he was a professional about it. And I just think I don't see him as a villain of the story like you do. You know, he essentially saved the day. And not that the cherry on top needs to be the hero or save the day, but you know, if you're not gonna go for him, then I'm gonna say Famke. But I will not. I will not go with Pritchett, whose name you couldn't even remember.
No, because I don't remember any of these fuckers' names. I have to say, I find Famke's character more interesting than Jeffrey's, just because she's got secrets and because she's got contradictions. Like here, she, you know, like seduced this guy in to like help her somehow. And he somehow ended up on the list and showed up, and nobody raised an eyebrow about it. And she has, I mean, that was something we didn't get to talk about, was her betrayal of him, like the fact that she, or we didn't like delve into it, like the fact that she like, you know, stabs him several times in the stomach and everything like that, and he doesn't see it coming, which is dumb because I've seen it coming every single time it happened. I'm like, and she's gonna kill him. She's gonna.
And
like,
she didn't just like kill it. She like full on like took that saw, which we don't see. We just see it afterwards when there's like the big mess of blood. But I can just, almost wish there was like a deleted scene or just like an outtake to put in like, that should have been like the button at the end credits or just like the mid credits of just like her like sawing. It could have just been like the actors just like on the table and like it was like a blooper or whatever and just like sawing and they'd be like, oh no, there's not enough blood, and then just like have them like laugh or whatever. Like that would have been fun. I like shit like that. That's fun.
Yeah. Again, examples of more just kind of like, delectable evil moments for her that I would have been totally on board for. But I feel like I just got ice. But that said, I again, maybe it's just that Julia thing too from Hellraiser. Like, something about a woman character trapped in a day-to-day situation, or not even trapped, I guess, but feeling trapped in a situation she keeps choosing and wants to find some kind of way out at any cost. I find Julia a lot more interesting than Famke's character, but sure. I wouldn't be mad if I saw her as cherry on top. I'd be like, all right, cool. It's Famke.
Okay.
Why not?
Then it's settled. So, Cherry Picker, last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Hollow Man. I nominated Linda McKay. You nominated Sebastian Kane. And across Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, the vote was 126 for Linda versus 696 for Sebastian.
Wow. Thanks, guys. He said begrudgingly.
Jana Ford says, definitely Sebastian. He was always a predator. He was spying on that girl long before he was turned invisible. It wasn't insanity that made him attack her. He just no longer had to worry about being identified.
I respect your perspective on that.
Michael Howell. Honestly, Linda, most unlikable final girl in horror history. I wouldn't go that far, but she's definitely, what was his line? He's just like, I always knew you were a bitch.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Rob Rangel says, Sebastian, I'm inclined to believe Eddie won last time and got first pick. No, he did not, actually.
No.
Yeah. See, I like to have fun with my nominations. I like to take the road less traveled, but I do it logically. I don't pick no trees mom or shit like that. I pick people who deserve it.
No, I logically, that was my heart, that was my conscience, and that's what I vote.
I cannot believe that for a second.
She bothered me. Did you see the thing I posted in my story a couple days ago where somebody actually reposted a video of somebody slamming a little boy's face into the table when he was supposed to be blowing out? He blew out his birthday candles.
Well, first of all, they didn't. They slammed it like way off the side. Tree's mom was more coordinated. Anyway,
I don't care. It's a risk. I don't care. It's a risk, and it bothers me. That's the point. It triggered me, and I that's why I voted for her.
Yeah, well, you're bothering me right now. Blueberry says, I haven't seen this since it was in theaters, but him. I remember that much.
That's great.
Neon Icon says, the man who decided this would be a good Invisible Man adaptation. Yeah, that tracks. Existence 001. Are you kidding? Linda is super badass. One of the best final girls ever. Okay, well, go have a little chat with Michael Howell because he thinks otherwise. But
wow.
Itsy Benny says Sebastian earns the vote for this week. He completely turns to the dark side, although an entertaining performance from Kevin Bacon. And then there's a bacon emoji. Steve says, I can't believe Zach got first pick this week and he didn't pick Sebastian. I mean, the guy bleeped his neighbor and then killed a dog. You can't really get much worse in these movies. Okay, like I said before, I'm here to provide entertainment value and give options. I don't like to go the road most traveled. I feel like if I have to pick like the most lecherous scumbag character in a movie, then it was a boring movie. So, you know, it was like a testament to Hollow Man that there are people that I, want to see die first before the heavy. Where are we here? Howl puns. Sebastian. I was 9 years old when my older brother made me watch this movie, and it freaked me out. I haven't rewatched it since, but I remember not liking Sebastian. I haven't said girl please in a while, but I don't think it's warranted here. Chris Perkins. Sebastian. For obvious reasons. Sasha Ricky, how is this even a question? LOL. It's always a question. That's the whole point of the cherry picker. Kenta Voorhees, Linda. Thank you. Only because she engages in a toxic work environment by jumping from one coworker to another, and the scenes where she lifts her covers in her room is so cringe. Everything she does is so cringe in this movie. Silent Saturn, Linda, she got to bang Josh Brolin. We're talking peak Josh Brolin here, and yet she was still hung up on Sebastian. Get it together, girl.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that was like your whole argument of just like, what are they broke up afterwards because they had nothing else to talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing in common.
Except
Sebastian.
Yeah. Cyrena Shock says, continuing with my same thoughts on single white female, no mercy for people who kill innocent dogs. Sebastian definitely did lots of other horrible things to deserve my vote here, but the dog scene disturbs me every time I watch this movie.
Me too.
Kira Wood. Sebastian. Yeah, Linda was bad, but not as bad as him. Michael 92. Sebastian killed that dog. Enough said. Venomat. I voted for Linda for no real reason. Honestly, I haven't seen the latest episode or know who these two characters are. I just started watching the channel from the beginning and just watched the Evil Dead video and and I just wanted to start up old drama by saying the professor's voice is not a character in Evil Dead. My rationale being is equivalent to the characters finding a letter from someone. A letter wouldn't be considered a character. I know this doesn't matter anymore, but I had to say it. It always matters. Okay. That podcast was a defining moment for the cherry picker. So we will always
establish the rules.
It's and I'm all for old drama. So bring it, Jesus. Thank you, Venomat, for that. And for your vote for Linda. I know you haven't seen it, but you chose wisely. And finally, Blue Box 87 says Sebastian, not only because of the character, but because Kevin Bacon gives me the creeps. Sorry, Kevin.
That is hilarious. Oh my God. I've never heard that before from anyone. Kevin Bacon is pretty, America's sweetheart, but whatever. Okay.
Is it America's sweetheart?
No, but I mean, I've never heard anybody say anything disparaging about him. It's not like everybody has like a gung-ho strong opinion on him, but he seems like Switzerland or better.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. All right. So that means I pick first who deserves to die most in this fucking movie. God. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not a fan of Dr. Combs or what his character name?
Dr. Vanekit.
Yeah, that guy. But he doesn't have enough screen time to really make me upset. So, and I know you're going to be shocked. Well, not shocked, but you're going to be.
I'm never
You're not
shocked
going to agree.
by-
You're not going to agree. I just corrected myself. You're not going to agree with my choice. But I don't know. I find him immensely distasteful while he's on screen. I don't get the rush that you do from his performance, so I'm going to choose Stephen Price. I think regardless of what he does, I just get slime and untrustworthiness, and I don't like, no matter how much they attempt to humanize him after he pushes his wife through a wall, everything about him in that moment between the two of them prior, like, the confrontation fight and everything, I'm just like, this is who you are. You've just been waiting for her to give you a reason to just unleash this, and I don't like it. So I choose him. How about you?
Okay. Well, no, I not that I'm not surprised. Sometimes I don't know where you're going. You could have picked Ali Larder, for all I know.
Yeah. She's a bad final girl. Well, she needs to get saved.
We forgot to mention that there's this whole scene where, it comes towards the end when Chris Kattan is still alive and they're trying to pry open the thing with the crowbar or whatever it is, the
so
pipe.
Stupid.
And you've got Chris Kattan and Taye Diggs like putting their weight down on this thing. And Ali Larder is just standing there, like right next to the bar, and she's just looking at it. She's just looking down. She's not assisting them in any way. She's not even offering like encouragement or moral support, being like, "You can do it." She's just standing there looking at it. And I always found that to be hilarious and really bad. And yeah, I think that there's definitely a case to be made for, if I ever make like a list of just like the worst final couples, I think they definitely deserve it. And I like to think that they did die up there. They basically, that's what it should have been, like almost like a Shining, going back to The Shining, of just like all of a sudden, like the next day there he is frozen with like icicles over him. But it would have just been like the next day you just see like skeletons with like vultures like circling around the top.
I was just gonna say, pecked by birds.
Yeah,
and they're just like these threadbare corpses. Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. See, that should have been the button. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, a very Final Destination as well. And the fact also, like that money just conveniently, or like the checks blew out there.
I hate that shit.
But when like the wind blew, I would have loved if like it just like took it away from them too, and just it went into the ocean. Anyway, no, my vote, my nomination is not going to be for either one of those. I'm actually going to go for, I thought you were actually initially going to go for Peter Gallagher's character.
No.
But I'm gonna pick him.
Okay.
Because I don't know. He's just a creep, I guess. I don't know. And how the fuck did he get in? How did he get in the house? What's the whole story there?
Get out of my house.
And exactly. And I feel that he did deserve what he got. Like that was earned. And I love that our cherry on top was the one that delivered it to him. So, his death actually enhanced the story. It made the plot better. So I'm gonna go with him, because I was thinking of Dr. Vanikit, because just extremely unethical for what he did to his patients. But like Jeffrey Combs and I can't in good conscience vote or nominate him. So yeah, I'm gonna go for what's his name? It's like Donald Blackburn, something.
Blackburn it sounds familiar.
Well, let me look real quick, because this is gonna annoy me if I don't figure it out.
I've got it right
Blackburn.
here. Blackburn is all that he's listed as on the IMDb page.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
there's got to be a first name in there somewhere.
It's Donald.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
So you can vote for, who did you pick again?
Price. Jeffrey Rush.
Yes, you can vote for Stephen Price, or you can vote for Donald Blackburn. The poll is going to be open on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. It's also on Patreon as well, if you're a supporter over there. And I would like to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So welcome and thank you to SawyerFan87, Queen Kareem, Samantha Trowbridge, or Trowbridge, and Tess Danielson. Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I love all those names.
I love every name that comes through there. All of them.
Every name.
Every name. And you can also be a Patreon supporter as well. Go to my Patreon page, Zach Cherry, and even the entry-level tier will get you all of these episodes 4 or 5 days early before we upload them. And also, if you are supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get to see our bonus episode, The Cherry Picker After Dark, which airs every month. This month, we are covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 3. We also do have Season 1 and 2 that we already did, so those are all available if you go back, if you are supporting on that tier. But I would also like to thank Andre Felix, the podcast editor, for putting all of these episodes together, both visually and audibly,
or sonically.
He does all that. So thank you.
One of those, yeah.
And
handles the audio.
The audio. And
The audio.
For anyone new to the Cherry Picker, if you are listening to us, you can also watch us on the YouTube channel. It's the Cherry Picker. Subscribe to us there. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to these episodes audibly. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Social media wise, you can also follow us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, and on Twitter at the Cherry Picker. I don't know. Twitter's like, so I don't know what's going on with that ever, and I don't even know how to use it very well. But we do put the polls on there, so you can check us out.
You can vote.
Yeah, and where can they find you on social media, Edward?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Edward is Truth, all one word. How about you, Zach Cherry? I don't know where I'm from now.
You can find me on YouTube, Zach Cherry, ZackCherry, and on
Zed.
I'm Canadian.
I know.
You have a problem with that all of a sudden?
No. I don't know. It tickles me every time I see a Z now. I'm just going to think Zed.
Zed's dead, baby. I'm also on Instagram at RetroBitchFace, all one word, and Twitter, again, ZackCherry8. So follow me there. What do we have going on next week?
The play of the child. The child's play. Chucky.
Child's Play 1. Yes.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, very weirdly, but in the best way possible. So tune in next week for Child's Play. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be